Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Vesey Total Grassroots Football Podcast, brought to you by VO.co. My name's Gary. We are a brand new podcast across the airwaves on Apple, Google and Spotify, and we are a bit of a knowledge share, right? We want to tell people and interview people about their little corner of the grassroots community, and today we have Liam Rivers, who is the chairman of Birmingham Blaze FC. Liam, how are you?
I'm all good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, buddy. Thanks for jumping on. We will crack straight on. So tell me, who are Birmingham Blaze?
So we're an LGBTQ plus football team. We're established in 2005, so we've been going a long time. I've not been there that long. But we're a bit of a strange LGBT football team, really, because I don't know whether you know, there's a sort of an LGBT football league across the country.
Okay.
A lot of that's centred on London, but there's teams all around the country, really. And we were quite a big part of that for quite a few years. But what we found was, obviously, we've got people predominantly from Birmingham, and some weeks we're playing in Glasgow, some weeks playing in Cardiff. It sort of takes up your whole weekend.
Yeah.
So we made a bit of an unusual step, really, for an LGBT team to actually go into a standard FA Sunday League kind of thing a few years ago.
Are you the first? Is there many LGBT teams that do that?
I don't really know, to be honest. We didn't do a lot of research into what other teams are doing.
It could be groundbreaking. You don't even know, right?
I wouldn't even know. But I was in a team, an LGBT team before in London.
Right.
But obviously London, the gay community there is a lot bigger.
Sure.
So they actually have their own London league. I think there's a few tiers of that as well.
Right.
So they're at a bit of an advantage over teams in Birmingham because there is only one team in Birmingham, so we've got to travel a lot further.
Yeah, sure.
So
how do you feel about that, right? How do you feel about that? Because there's obviously an element of inclusion, and it goes both ways, right? There's their own league for LGBT, and is that the way to go, or should we start to include, do we include LGBT teams into a standard league? I'm not going to say normal, but a classic league or whatever.
I don't know. I felt a bit weird about it, actually, when I joined my first LGBT team in London. I felt a bit weird about
it being its own league.
Yeah, I mean, I found the team on Tinder, believe it or not. So it was quite an unusual way to join a football team. But I was, it was, because I've played football since I was about 8. And I've never had any issue. I mean, I came out when I was 16, 17, and I've never had anything of people from my own team say anything negative towards me about that kind of thing.
You never had any kind of no slurs or anything in any games? Not just from your own team, I mean from like external teams.
The odd thing at uni, odd thing, but like my team were always very supportive.
Sure. That's great, yeah.
So I've never felt the need to join an LGBT team to play football, if that makes sense, which I think is what a lot of people, or certainly when it was formed, they felt like that was the only way they could play football, if that makes sense. So right. I did feel a bit dubious about joining, but I think as I'd finished uni and I needed to join a team down there, and that came up on my Tinder. I thought, you know what, let's give it a go.
Yeah, great.
And I really enjoyed it.
So Birmingham Blaze, you're saying that's now an LGBT team in a national league?
Well, yeah, just a Birmingham. It's called the Festival League. It's just a local Birmingham, local Birmingham league. Yeah. So,
are you doing well? Are you successful?
We won our division the first year we went into it. Obviously, that meant promotion, but it's a bit difficult to get playing better teams.
Yeah.
But we've stayed up the 2 seasons after that. We sort of finished about mid-table, the season just gone. So we're doing okay in it, really.
I mean that's great, and I think the aim of the podcast, right, is, like I said, is a bit of a knowledge share. So from what I can see, is that there may be struggles around player recruitment for an LGBT team.
Yeah, I think for us, we're sort of like trying to be everything to everyone, really, because we want to be that competitive football team. We've got some really, really good players on our team who could play at a much higher level.
Sure.
But we've also want to be that team that if you've never played football before, if you haven't played football for 10 years, you can come to training. So it's striking that balance, really, between the two. So you get the really good players sometimes can get frustrated that, we're trying to be everything to everyone and let everyone have a go.
Yeah.
And sometimes those players that have come down for, having not played for 10 years, they can get a little bit intimidated perhaps sometimes. So we're we do try to strike that balance. Obviously, we have different sort of like training is for everyone. Obviously, the 11-a-side games in the Sunday League are picked on those players that we think are going to do best, and then we have other friendlies and other games as well that are a bit less competitive that anyone can sort of join into as well. So we do try and get the balance right.
So it's kind of a good community thing, right?
Veo is the ultimate camera for capturing video in any major team sports, from soccer to basketball and football, you name it. And every day, thousands of teams on all levels all over the world record with Veo. If you're a coach, there is no easier way to analyze footage so you can better develop the talent you're working with. And if you're a player, there is no quicker way to share those special moments and maybe the not so special moments.
So how do you, I mean, you mentioned you joined via Tinder, right? Which is, like you said, is a non-conventional way of joining a football team. But how do you recruit? I mean, do you still go through Tinder, or are there specific boards? You know, do you use communities like Football v Homophobia or Rainbow Laces community?
We don't use Tinder anymore. I mean,
cool.
I have done in the past. In like a couple of years ago, I used Tinder, but to be honest, the messages you get on there aren't always the most conducive to joining a football team.
No, I bet, yeah.
they're slightly different. We use social media, so obviously use Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, that kind of thing. And then a lot of our recruitment, to be honest, has come through players bringing in their mates, which I think is really nice because I'd say we have a real balance of LGBT and LGBT allies, really. So I think it's really nice, and it builds into that community feel that everyone's involved, and we have like existing friendship groups in that team, and everyone's come together, and I think that works really well. But I do think we always want more players to come down.
Yeah, I think everyone does, right? You want to grow. So, I mean, let's talk about the growth side. Like, how did it all start? You know, was it just kind of a bunch of people getting together? I'm assuming it's predominantly male?
Yeah, it's predominantly male. We have had a couple of trans players, but it's predominantly male.
Okay, cool.
So I mean, it started in 2005. I wasn't there, but there's a few people who were there, still come down for the occasional training session and stuff. But as far as I understand, they just wanted to play football. They were aware of the it's called the GFSN, the National Gay League. It's the Gay Football Supporters Network. So that's like the national league. I think they just wanted to join that. They were aware of that, so joined that and sort of grew from there, really. But they didn't used to play every week either. So it's grown sort of organically. Sure. And now obviously we play twice a week. So it's definitely grown a lot over the last few years, really. Yeah.
And I guess, like you said, the growth part is kind of that word of mouth. I think there needs to be, more so than probably other teams, an inclusion or an openness, you know, a lot of communication. You know, say like they're bringing their friends, that's because there's an element of trust there, and it needs to be a safe space. You know, football, I think predominantly has probably been a lot of abuse verbally towards homophobia and racism and stuff, and it might not be deemed from the outside as a safe place for the LGBT community that want to play football, right?
Yeah, exactly, and we've had a bit of that as well since we joined. Obviously, we didn't get it when we played in the LGBT league, but when we joined the Sunday League the first season, we got some, you know, not nice comments, and we reported some of it to the FA.
How did that go? How did that? The FA worked well, did they?
No, they weren't amazing.
Oh, okay, cool, really. Right.
So we reported it, and not an awful lot was done until we basically put pressure on for stuff to be done. Right. Because actually some of it was recorded. So Sky Sports actually were interested in broadcasting what we'd recorded. And when we mentioned that, then the FA were a little bit quicker to respond. So, okay, cool. So yeah, I think it has improved a lot. I play in other teams as well. I play in a 6-a-side team, and some comments were made a few weeks ago to me in terms of like homophobia. Yeah. And that was dealt with really, really well. So I think it is getting better across the game. Sure.
So that's at the organisation level, right? Obviously the teams, the FA, Sky and that lot, they are, you know, keen on trying to address all of this. But how does the player deal with it? You know, not from a process perspective, but I mean mentally. You know, I think obviously you go through it, through life over the past however many years, but to experience it on a pitch, you know, do you mentally have to prepare yourself leading up to that kind of stuff?
I think that's where I do think it feeds in that it's a good thing that we are an LGBT team and we're all on the same page on that. So I think that does help that we're all, I mean, we have like a gay pride flag on our kit, so it's quite obvious that we are.
So it's that openness to communicate, you know, mentally between players, right? Because I've interviewed a whole bunch of teams over the past, you know, couple of weeks, and I asked them, you know, do you feel you can open up to your team members in elements of mental health, both on and off the pitch? And a lot of them are saying, well, no, I don't do that. And I believe that if you can open up to your other team members, you'll not only be better as a person, but better as a player and better as a team. And I think, you know, like you mentioned, communication in an LGBTQ team is very supportive, probably more so than you know, any other type of team, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think, we've had players that suffer with mental health issues and they're always very open about it. And we're always doing what we can to support them in that. So I think you're right, probably more than in other teams potentially. I mean, I can't speak for it because I don't know how, from what you've just said there, then yeah, I'd probably say that. But I think, I mean, for me, it's, I mean, as chairman of the team, when we experience some homophobia, I'll go to them at the end and say, you know, like, it's discrimination. It's the same as racism. You wouldn't say anything racist to anyone.
No, right.
2021, like this isn't okay, and try and explain to them quite reasonably. Some teams are quite receptive and, you know, say, you know, it's not on. I go speak to the manager, speak to their chairman or whatever. Yeah. And some teams are quite receptive and say, you know, I'll speak to them. It's not on. Really, really sorry. Some teams, you know, there's no reasoning with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It varies really.
And you know what? You're right there where it's exactly the same as racism, right? It's discrimination. There's no part of it in the game at all. But I think, you know, the organisation at organisation level, it's racism is, you know, the golden boy, for want of a better phrase, right? That's what's focused on more so. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there are any openly gay players in the Premier League, right?
No, there aren't. No.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any in any sort of top league or top division in Europe or even in America, really.
And I think you could probably guarantee that there are some from the LGBT community in the Premier League, right? For odd, in odds sense, right?
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think they could do better. So I think because they're such role models, you know, not only from an individual from that community needs to stand up and come out on, or however they want to portray themselves, but also the team needs to band around them as well, right?
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult because that first person is going to get a lot of abuse.
Absolutely. It'd be rife.
But also on the flip side, they're also going to get a lot of endorsements as well.
It'll be huge. They'll be seen as a hero and a villain at the same time, sadly.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. But you see, I mean, I watch a lot of Premier League football and Brighton, who don't have any gay players, but just by the nature of them being
in Brighton,
a team in Brighton, the homophobia that their players get and their fans get when they go to away games from other teams' fans is pretty horrific, really.
It's crazy.
There's not even anyone. Yeah. It's just because they're from Brighton.
It's uneducated. Yeah.
It is really. So it is a shame. I think it is getting better. And there are stuff like the Rainbow Laces campaign.
Yeah. We've done a bit of work for the Rainbow Laces. Yeah. They're and Football v Homophobia every year. That's really good.
Yeah, but then it was really disappointing in the Euros, obviously, with what's going on in Hungary. Yeah. And the fact that, you know, countries like that effectively get awarded having these competitions. I mean, you look at Russia, look at Qatar as well. Their record on that's not great, and that's where the last World Cup is and next World Cup is. So it doesn't fill you with faith that
there's obviously more needs to be done, right? There needs to be. It's more, like I said, inclusion. But going back to that comment saying that there is an LGBT league, that seems strange for me to kind of segregate. You know, I mean, saying that on the flip side, right? Are there any heterosexual players playing for Birmingham Blaze?
Oh, yeah. I'd say about...
There are? Okay, great.
Yeah. So I'd say maybe 40, 50% potentially. So,
okay, cool.
I mean, I've not sat down and worked it out.
No, I'm not saying that you've got a circle or a cross next to your name, right? But that, I mean, that's great, because I think, having that inclusion and diversity, you call yourself an LGBT team, but then the heterosexual players in there are great representatives of the LGBT team as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, our longest serving player, he is straight. So he's been there pretty much since the beginning. And he's also probably one of our best players as well. But he's straight, and he's been throughout like the club's existence. So I think it is really important to have that balance. And because I think it adds to the diversity of the team. I think, and I get what you're saying in terms of it's strange to have an LGBT league, and that's how I thought about it at first. But I've gone to like 6-a-side tournaments where we have other LGBT teams, and it's more of a celebration of it really, rather than it being sort of like putting ourselves off.
I can see that now, right? I mean, that's great.
And I wasn't really sure what it was going to be like, but I think it's definitely
one big community aspect there. You're there for a reason, not just football.
Yeah, and we can share our experiences and how to run a team and what to do. And so I think it is. I mean, we had a tournament last week. I couldn't make it, but we had a tournament in Brighton, not Brighton, in Blackpool. For all the LGBT teams, and that was really, really good experience for our lads to go up there and talk to other people. And it's basically, it's not just about the football either. It's about going on the nights out and stuff.
Absolutely. And building that internal community.
Exactly.
So tips and tricks, right? What guidance can you give, not only from a team perspective, but also a player, someone that would like to go and play for an LGBT team? How do they go about it? Let's start with the team first. How can a team be more open in including LGBT players or player recruitment?
You mean like a standard Sunday league team kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, grassroots. Yeah.
I don't really know. I just think making it. I mean, we've had teams that we played against who have been really sort of interested and supportive, and messages after the game saying like, "Good luck for the season. It's great what you're doing," kind of thing. And we have good relationships with those teams. Like we played pre-season friendlies against them, and I know that LGBT players who played for us and then left and have gone on to play for some of these teams as well. Because they're quite open, and I think a lot of it is about education. I really do. I mean, I'm a teacher myself, and we do a lot of work in school at the minute in terms of diversity and stuff like that. So I never got it when I was in school. We never had that.
Ditto. It was never mentioned at all.
So I think a lot of it is generational. So when we go, maybe in 10 years' time, we wouldn't really be having this conversation, because most people would be...
it wouldn't even be a thing, right? We'd never even mention it. It would just be.
Yeah, so I do think in that respect, we're maybe 10, 20 years behind racism in terms of homophobia and dealing with that.
Yeah, do you know what? I agree. I think although some work has been done on the whole racism piece, we've only moved an inch, right? And I think you're right. I think homophobia is behind, definitely
and then behind that you've got like transphobia as well. So it's
a long process. Thinking about it now, like it is. It's going to be a struggle. We all hope that we can kind of banish it from the game, but it is an uphill struggle, sadly, right? Go on.
And I think you think that like in terms of humanity, like we move forwards all the time and everything's progression, but I think we've got to be careful, because sometimes things can go backwards as well. So we've got to make sure we're moving forward all the time, really.
Absolutely. And what about players? How do players kind of approach the process? Do they, a player or someone who would like to play football that is from the LGBT community wants to go and play football, do they just go and rock up and find their local team? Should they go and find a team from that LGBT community, or what's the best approach for those people?
I mean, I think it depends. I mean, for me, it was always important to play with my mates. So, like, I mean, and that's why I was reluctant to join an LGBT team, because none of my mates were gay, so I didn't really know how to approach it. So what I did, I just took the plunge really and went along to training, like message them, can I play. But also you can bring other people with you, so it's always nice to go with someone. So if you've got some mates that want to play, then
nice safety blanket,
that. But also I do think it was really good for me, because it helped me make actually LGBT friends as well, and actually widen my social circle a little bit. So I think it depends what you want out of football. I mean, some people might be really, really good at football, so you want to find a team that's going to be really competitive. Some people might just want to play for a laugh, in which case come along to our training because, you know, there's no sort of like level you have to be at. But it depends what you want and what sort of level you want to play at, really.
Yeah. Mate, it's been great speaking to you. This has been a really good discussion. I love this kind of stuff, right? So how do people get in touch if they want to come and play for Birmingham Blaze? How do people get in touch? What's your handle, web address? Give me the lowdown.
Yes, so we're on Twitter, on Instagram, and everything like that. So Instagram, just bear with me, it is Blaze FC.
Cool. Web address,
and then our web address is birminghamblazefc.com.
Great. And they can just kind of like slide into your DMs if they want to come and play, even if they just want to kind of watch from the sidelines as well, right?
Absolutely. We're always up for people coming to watch. So we've got, and also we go for drinks after the games as well in the Fox Bar in Birmingham. So people want to come along to that as well. Obviously now bars are all open up. They've been great for us, the Fox Bar, in terms of sponsoring us over the last few years. So we have all our socials there. So anyway, even if you don't really want to play football, the social side of it's also really important.
Yeah, great community. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyone who wants to come along to that, just drop us a message on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And feel free to come along and watch what we're up to.
Liam, chairman from Birmingham Blaze FC, thanks very much for being this week's guest. Listeners, thanks very much for tuning in. Obviously, over the next weeks and months, we have a whole bunch of guests talking about their own corner of the Grassroots community. You can catch it on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Thanks for tuning, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Cheers.